So yeah, I have the honor today to present some things about content, social media, and how we're gonna, or how we can use that essentially for DAOs as well. And the first question is, can you see the screen? That's probably most important. And can you hear me properly?
Yep.
Cool.
All good.
Perfect. So I had I had a few thoughts over the weekend, scanned DAOs and just kind of like wanted to zoom out for a second again when it comes to comms and social media and what is content and why is it so important? Because I feel like sometimes with all the other things that we have going on in life, and especially the project itself and the science behind it, it becomes a bit of a challenge probably to even take this something as a priority. And that's totally understandable. But I would like to take the next 20 minutes or so to just kind of like run through why it's not an optional thing to have in today's world, and it's actually the lifeblood in itself to have proper comms, to have social media that works, and to have the right language for your DAOs. So I have not a scientific background, but I have a 15-year-old content background. So I tried a lot of things over the last decade or 1.5 decades, and it's like the experimentation is like science here. You need to have data to in order to be able to move forward, and this is no different with social media. So that's what we're going to focus here today. It's not so much about how to communicate scientifically correctly, because that individual, every DAO has their own comms, but why? Why are we going to, why do we need this essentially? So the harsh reality is that we are living in a digital world, and that's a good thing, or not, depending on how you look at it, but we are all Web3, so I guess we're all happy about it. So everything that happens, and that goes now to branding and the content itself, is happening online. And if we are not communicating this in a way that actually people can find us, then there will be restraints and limitations when it comes to ultimately what you all probably want out of this is the funding, but also the community around this. And the original way of how someone probably got branded 20 years ago was to really just be good with flyers and email, which still is important, and just offline events and meetups, and that's still a very big part. But 90% probably today, how you can establish a brand is going to be online, and that's why it's not something that should be taken lightly and be like, hey, I have just done 12 hours of science, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I understand why science is the main flagship or the flagship, but if social media falls behind because of that, then it's going to be something that you will, like your science, that is the mission behind your science that is crucial for you and for many people out there, will not be seen, right? And then it's basically just spending a lot of time doing science, but not actually finding the people and community that supports that mission. So, this is just, data pool, but like 78% of the startup founders that are consistently communicating this, and that means daily, they have better outcomes for fundraising, hiring, and very obvious things at the end of the day, right? And the game, this is where I come from, from the very creative, from a very creative background. Like the game has changed completely since the pandemic 5 years ago. This is not again, as an optional thing anymore. It's something that people are using to build their entire businesses. And it's an attention-first culture, meaning that if you are not able to capture attention quickly, then you will be scrolled away, right? And that is a wasted opportunity. And that doesn't mean you have to be clickbaity or annoying or like, spammy or whatever, but the copy and the way you just grab attention on these devices right here, since this is 70% where people consume their content, is going to be essential to understand that this has the biggest leverage for probably your bio DAO. And that's also where you find all those people that want to be involved in this and then spread the word organically. So if your science and mission is, not showing up on the feed, then that's a result of not understanding the rules, how social media is being played. And that goes all back to psychology. And it's not the algorithm in itself. The algorithm is essentially the psychology of the human being. It's like how we consume and how our attention span works and how we give that attention. And then the algorithm will just be like, okay, that is now currently hot. That's why we're going to distribute it in a way that we need to in order to have the people on track, right? So it's basically, not enough to say that we are doing great science, because nobody will see the great science. And that goes back to the continuous branding of bringing the trust factor in, meaning that when you have, if you have a logo communicating with the world, then it's going to be very hard to build trust and connection and relationships. And I mean, every time you go to a conference or a meetup, you know how important it is to have real life exchanges. That's actually where probably most of the opportunities and also the most building offline happens when it comes to how to move forward. And it's the same thing on social media. It's just getting overlooked because it still feels like for a lot out there that it's nothing that is very important and it's basically just a bonus to do. And if I don't do it, I will probably succeed anyway. And I can tell you that's not going to be the case. So the last part here, this one sentence here, having someone dedicated to communicating your work clearly and consistently, that needs to be in place. If you don't have the time to do this, I highly advise you to find someone in your family or maybe your cousin or your daughter or son or whoever, your wife, your husband, whoever, who can take care of this and actively, because that will change how your brand will develop. And then the copywriting part, right? It's not again, 5 years ago, we had TikTok being introduced to the world and everyone got just more addicted to phones and scrolling. Now the part where you hook the people is the most still underrated part for many who start probably with social media or just didn't have the time to study it for their own projects or for their own brands due to other priorities again. But this is where you scroll and you get caught by something that is different. That's why doom scrolling is a real thing, because the algorithm understands what works, because the creators who understand how to hook will get all the attention. And then that's ultimately whatever. They get the revenue as a creator, or their brand builds more reputation, or it's a whole rabbit hole in itself. And algorithms are important, but again, it's not what makes or breaks your communication. And that is something that I see a lot right now happening when it comes to scientific content. It's just still very technical or academic. And of course, it depends on the audience and it depends who you're talking to. And that should always be the ultimate question before you start. Who am I even writing to? You cannot write to everyone. If you have science going on that wants to solve cancer, you're not going to talk probably about, renewable energy and then, try to convince them about cancer solutions. That's probably not the way to write, but at the same time, it still needs the skill to bring in the copy so you can bring the light to your mission. So you have to be able to break the screen, literally. Like someone needs to stop for you, because you are not like, yeah, who is this for? What we just covered, like, why should they care? And then ultimately being human about this, not just like ChatGPT, and then let's hope that it works out, because now everything is kind of ChatGPT, and people develop patterns, right? Like you might probably already know if someone wrote something with ChatGPT, and that needs to be humanized. Otherwise, it's just one out of probably 10 million accounts that tries to be sending a signal. And here is, I think, one of the most important parts that I see. Like, you're competing essentially with everything that requires your attention, or it requires human attention. Like, someone spends the night on Netflix because they just spend their time there because it gives them something that they don't get anywhere else. The same goes with news, with memes, or with their favorite influencers. Like, everyone wants your attention. And if you just say, yeah, but those are not my audiences, well, then that's cool, but you're still competing with that attention. It doesn't matter if it's not your audience. You need to be able to stand out between all those mediums and different formats and different other ways how people get entertained, right? So if that's something you can bring to the scientific communication itself to make it fun and entertaining, but also, in an educational way, that you actually speak to someone that maybe doesn't have that background, because you might want that person to understand what you're actually aiming to do. And that's why you're competing with the entire world, and you need to break that. And once you build a community, the first few hundred or a couple of thousand followers, now you have a kickstart engine. Now, every time you post, because of those people already interested in what you had to say, they will be there and they will be supporting, and now the whole compound effect starts, right? But that's going to be the toughest part, to build that foundation and to break out of no one cares to some people care and build your first. There's this famous book called 1000 Fans. You want to have your first 1000 fans, so they support everything you do. And yeah, blend education with narrative and emotion. I think the emotional part is probably the most important and crucial part. Like, everything today, that's why, and it's sad, and it also depends on your algorithm, obviously, but like, that's why negative news do so well, because it always makes one stop and want to know why and want to know more. And now, obviously, the algorithm picks that up and then shows you more of that stuff. And now it's the wrong way how an algorithm should probably be built. But the same goes then to scientific content. You can build emotional connection with someone by telling stories that actually break the screen. And again, I spend a lot of time doing this with different types of platforms and content. And before I joined Bio, I was actually coaching people to build their personal brands and whatnot. And like, I see this relationship now more important than ever. Like, having your project and your DAO connected to your own personal account. And I mean that in a way that you basically become the face if you're the founder, right? Because we can see this in today's world, like with, and of course these are like, the flagship examples here, but these people don't talk a lot about their companies or their labs, in this case with Huberman. Like, they talk about a lot of different other things that are important to them and push their business and push their mission with their own personal accounts. I mean, Blueprint gets the visibility not because Blueprint posts. It gets the visibility because, Brian Johnson talks about how he will not or doesn't want to die, and that ultimately leads traffic to Blueprint and ICE to Blueprint. And in this case, Blueprint will be your DAO, right? So that is not going to go away. It's going to become increasingly more big, and with like also here AI agents getting introduced, and basically AI becoming a personal brand probably, or already existing out there. That's again a new way of grabbing attention. And the one creator out there who can probably leverage AI agents with their own personal agents at scale will win big time, because they have so much eyeballs on their content and on their mission that they just naturally will outperform anyone who does not do that, right? So the algorithm is just a mirror of the audience. I say this and I want to emphasize this because I feel the algorithm is usually something that people take too seriously. And it's like, how can I hack the algorithm and what's hot on the algorithm? And it's important, obviously, especially to play the game by their rules. But it's not ultimately what's probably going to make your content stand out in the long run. It's like you need to have the skill, or someone in your team needs to have that skill either developed or already, brings to the table. Who knows how to write good copies, is good in front of the camera in the first few seconds. They matter, unfortunately. People will scroll over otherwise. And that is all how the algorithm gets built up. Like, you consume, you like it, it triggers flags internally in the system. It's like, okay, that person is into that kind of content, giving more of that content. Because it's all about retention for these platforms. They don't care if you are on a good mission or not, unfortunately. They just care about revenue for themselves with ads. And the more you can keep people on the platform, the more they make money off of you. But at the same time, they will also reward you because you are now important for the platform. And that's the cracking code there. But it's not something just technical. It's more like psychology and human connection. So native content importance. I will go into this in the last slide briefly again, but it's like basically you don't want to have every post you're creating sending people off the platform, because what that will do, it will trigger the X algorithm in this case as a red flag, because you're sending people off the platform, and it means like, okay, why would I as X give you now more reach? I mean, you're sending it then to YouTube anyway, so it doesn't really benefit me. So I'm just going to flag you, deprioritize you, and now the whole spiral downwards will start because you will not get any reach if you do that too much. But this is something that we internally at Bio also always have a back and forth kind of like dialogue, and it's not probably something that is too kind of like written in stone, but it's still something from a pure psychology perspective. It's like, okay, of course it makes sense that you don't want to send people off the platform for the platform itself. And then things start to increase once you actually play the game right. So these are just numbers now I pulled from our new account. But this is obviously some stats that are fueled by the big account because of the reshares, etc. But it's the more green you see in your premium algorithm tab, that's basically your boost you will have down the line. And if it's red, then you're getting probably punished by the algorithm, and that you need to focus on what works and what doesn't. So nothing changes here with social media or with content. It's the same thing than probably any other scientific area. You need to create or experiment. You need to publish it. Then you get a feedback. You get data. Then you analyze that data, and then you do it again. And that's what you do over and over again. And it's a never-ending story. It never ends because it will always evolve and it will always change. And if you just think you figure it out, the next day, everything changed. So this is very important. Like your analytics here are incredibly valuable to you. It gives you all the things you need. If a post doesn't do good, then it means data. And it means, okay, I need to see why. And with videos, for example, you can establish that very quickly because you can see the drop-off, for example. Where do they drop off? And that's where you maybe need to figure out why and how to optimize that. That's the game, right? So yeah, social media science, so to speak. Content and consistent signal, meaning you want to not just kind of like, post, like you don't want to just show up and post something that you might be very excited right now and then leave the platform for a week. Because that is not building anything. That is not building a relationship. That is not building a community. And that is also then down the line not building anything good for your algorithm rewards, because that's part of it, right? So the more you obviously post, that's why I'm saying this is not a side job or a side quest. This is a main quest as well. It's the brand, and the science is the main quest on the other side. And now there needs to be a connection very strongly. And it's also one of the reasons, probably, or not probably, pretty sure, why shitty products, unfortunately, do well with good marketing, at least for a certain amount of time. And then good products, but bad marketing will usually not go anywhere because it's just ignored. And if someone has a good product or a good mission and a good kind of like angle and good marketing, I mean, that's a cocktail for success, because now you just kind of like are on the right track from the get-go. So focus on more process talking and not just the results. Show why and how you do the things. Invite the people to understand your mission and become part of it. And not just, here is what I have achieved, and now let's move forward. That's just a nice milestone, but it's not going to bring in funding probably, if once options are live, or anything that should be considered as important. So building in public is one of the major things that a lot of new age and like entrepreneur and personal brands are doing. They build in public. They are transparent. So yeah, minimum viable content strategy in this case. And I just quickly want to go over this to give you something that you can immediately implement. Obviously, you will need to find someone that will do that for you if it's not you. But that's like the minimum thing you need to do in today's age as a bio DAO as well. So you post regularly. That's going to be daily. It's not enough to post 2 times a week. And it's probably not even enough to post 5 times a week. And I'm not saying this because I want to be like, defending my angle of a creator. I'm saying this because of the attention we just talked about. Like, the more you gather the feedback and the data, the more you understand quickly what works for you and what doesn't. And then once you found that angle and you found your language and you found the posts that are standing out, is now, okay, I can ditch this more and I can talk about this a bit more, because that obviously needs to double down now and not just like ignoring it. So weekly, check your analytics and be like, this posted very well. I can actually rephrase that one, in a week or 2 and highlight it. And then you can come back and post it again in a different way, because chances are that only 2 or 3% saw it anyway, and the rest will never see it. So you are not going to spam anyone if you think like, but I just posted this. Yeah, but just 5% saw it. So yeah, again, someone needs to handle this full time. That's going to be super crucial. Otherwise, you will have a burnout next to the science and everything else. I mean, it's just not sustainable. And always use the formats that the platform rewards. On X, it's everything, because it's the everything app. So you need to find your own kind of like way of how to communicate there. Like if it's video, perfect. If it's long form, essays, also great. But then you need to make sure that these are, correctly formatted and all that matters. Find your style, but it needs to be something that is basically placed. When a new feature drops, like let's say 2-3 years ago, Spaces dropped on X. If you are now one of the first people using Spaces, you will be rewarded by the platform, because obviously they want people to use those features, so they push it out more, right? So that's all kind of like this whole tree of how to use the tools in front of us that are essentially speaking free for your own benefit and the biggest leverage point. And this one is really, really big. And I know it doesn't get any serious attention or any like serious consideration, actually, because it feels like, but I mean, why would I reply to people? It seems like a waste of time. No, this here is what makes you post instead of one original post, 20 posts a day with little things that you can prove or can show your authority, and that you actually know your domain, or that the things you want to talk about and want to share with the world. But that gives you 15x more chances per day with small things that you can add to conversations in the comments to spread your logo and your mission. Like, you don't have to post 15 times originally with the native content, but if you post 10 comments per day, take 15-20 minutes per day with your coffee in the morning and just network. It's like going to a network event. Again, like if you stay in the corner and expecting people to come to you, it's probably going to be really hard. And then you leave the event and like, okay, cool, whatever. It was boring, or it didn't really benefit me, or I didn't make any new connections. It's the same on social media. Like, you need to be there in the trenches, as they say, and be annoyingly active. Because again, the algorithm takes care of the annoyance or the spamming. There's usually not a lot of spam anymore, because that will just be blocked, not blocked, but like just not distributed, or it will just be handled how it's distributed in general. Like, you are not going to be showing up 20 times in a row on someone's feed. That's not how it works anymore. And then never buy followers. Never. And I've seen this already doing a few, I've I think been doing this already, and I can guarantee you this is the beginning of the end, because it gives you vanity and it gives you some sort of like credibility, quickly. But the moment they scroll down your feed and they see 4 likes and no retweets and no comments with 50K, 100K followers, whatever, that's the biggest red flag you can have for real human beings organically, but also for the system, the algorithm, because those bots essentially, or fake accounts or whatever, they will gradually leave your account. And that again tells the system your account is not valuable. It's nothing that we want to push. And now having thousands of people leaving your account, counter trading that with good stuff, good luck with that, because that takes now even probably 10x the amount to even get out of this dump. So never do it. And it also doesn't benefit you. I mean, who of those fake followers will ever buy into the project, right? And fund it and help support the mission. So yeah, we have like 2 slides left of things, and then I'm over with my monologue here. Scientific storytelling strategy tips quickly, just briefly to give you, the angles that might be interesting. Like, again, process, like the progress behind the science, transparent, clearly, as much as you obviously can share. I mean, if something is very, just not disclosed or whatever, then of course don't just, the own rules. But the more you can show what you're actually building is how things are actually going to get shared more and reposted. And that's very, very, very powerful, because that makes a lot of difference, in the compound effect of all of this. Frame the database network you're building, obviously just an angle. The same goes with, the data. You basically, we talk about decentralization, and that's something different not everyone will probably immediately understand what it actually really means, but that's your chance to enlighten them. And that's the chance of giving them not just an angle or like not just to talk about your mission in itself, but the entire mechanism behind it and the philosophy and why decide, right? Like you should also become a decide educator with your project, because that probably in the next year is going to be a very strong narrative. And if you can position yourself as a authority there, then you will already build rapport and you will have a strong community. And these will then also be like, okay, but this is actually, connected to something that also interests me on a personal level, right? So never think that you cannot talk about DeSci in itself, but actually use it as an angle to build a community as well. Then the AI angle, that's obvious. This one is not going to go away. It has its ups and downs and ebbs and flows, but it's basically probably going to be here for a very long time as an interesting angle. And that is where you want to also kind of like get in. The product itself, the mission, and then also the tokenomics, I would say, make them digestible. I have seen too many posts that are just not digestible. It's just not not interesting, but it's just hard to even get interested when there is already too much maybe jargon or wordings that you naturally would not stop on your screen, right? That's what this is. You need to make it first digestible, and then below you can go into depth and become more scientific and academic and whatever you really want to highlight. But the first 3 lines cannot just be something that no one probably will even catch with their eye, right? It needs to be a bit, not controversial, but kind of like sparking curiosity. And that goes for tokenomics as well. And yeah, technical tips briefly is just do these things right here in front of you. Like you need to be daily in the replies of your audiences and communities out there, not just randomly, obviously. Build community with interacting and the relationships. Avoid posting links in lead tweets. Lead tweets is the first tweet in your thread. Don't post it there. Post it at the end as a call to action, and then it will also just probably not flag you, and B, it will be a nice way of first educating them why you need to click something, right? 1 to 2 times is the ideal. I would say it's non-negotiable, but will require someone probably on your team to just hit that, because that will give you the best feedback loop, as we discussed. Short form video and long form video both. It's on, share it in a 45-second stand up, whatever you wanted to say today that is interesting to you and maybe to like other people out there. If you feel comfortable doing that, that's a very huge opportunity. Design matters, like pure design things and also formatting how you write and all will just not be appealing. Like it's not going to be interesting to see something that is already maybe not, like the quality needs to be there, right? And you can do that with a lot of free tools, but also with paid tools. Maybe screenshot this here. These are the tools we are using mainly. Typefully tweets has AI functions in there to make the tweets even better. As pretty much every tool today, Create a Body, very strong tool, like to really combine certain AI tools out there. I could talk about this a long time, so I will not go into this, but just do your research. These are very, very helpful tools. And then Figma or Canvas, choose your player. Doesn't really matter, but Figma probably a bit stronger when it comes to design options. This is just me kind of like briefly taking 20 minutes or so, a bit longer now, to highlight what I see is crucial for everyone on social media. I could talk about this for hours, if not days, And there is a lot more I could cover and share, but yeah, I will need to stop here because otherwise there will not be time for anything else. I hope this gave a bit of light to how to approach things. And if there is anything I can help with in this ecosystem, it's content and social media. Don't come with science stuff or too deep Web3 stuff to me. I cannot help you. But if it is about branding and social media, I am on Telegram and available.